Hello, and welcome back to wife-aggro videos and our new series, which we're calling Game Sell Deep Dive. We're going to be taking a look at some inexpensive games that you could pick up on Steam or Humble Bumble or wherever, and getting a look and see whether they're worth what you spend on them. This first episode is going to be on the game Salt, which I think I picked up on sale on Steam for like $10. It's currently about $15, I think. Let's take a look at the game and see if it's worth what I paid for it. For this series, I wanted to follow a who, what, where, when, and why format to help me break down the storytelling aspects of the game or the gameplay itself into something easily organized so that I could determine whether I thought the game was fun and enjoyable and worth the time and effort that I put into it. And hopefully that will help you with your thoughts about the game as well. The who you are in Salt is a shipwrecked or marooned, I'm not sure if those are two different terms, but a sailor, possibly a pirate. It's I never did make that determination in the game. Seemed like it could be either or. There's evidence to both sides. Who's been helped ashore by a helpful NPC in the game who puts you next to a little camp that has a body with some loot on it to get you started and a chest to get you started. The game is not super helpful as far as your experiences get going. You can see I'm kind of struggling with some stuff here, trying to figure out how the UI works and the controls. You could go, there is a wiki that you could use to get going in the game. I personally try not to use those too much and kind of want to see how the game was out of the box. See if there was any tutorial or training going on, but it wasn't too hard. Most of the usual tropes seem to work. Except for a couple of them that I'm sure you'll see as part of me wandering around the islands. So that brings us to the what do you do in Salt. Salt, according to Steam, is a open world survival adventure. And does definitely follow some of those tropes. It's a light RPG. You're going to do some crafting and fighting and gathering. And although, as you can see here from this example, it's not the most intuitive. It's not, I guess from playing Minecraft, I was trying to beat the crap out of the trees, and here, beating the crap out of the rocks. And that's definitely not how you gather. But you're going to do a lot of gathering. But the way that you're going to do it is a little bit different. Instead of having to run around and chop down trees, you're going to run around and gather up fallen logs. In fact, with just a few exceptions, you're pretty much going to pick up everything that you need for crafting off the ground. So speaking of crafting, crafting in Salt was fairly simple. You gathered up the resources off the ground or wherever you found them, and once you had them, you could use the crafting interface to create stuff. The book that you get at the beginning kind of shows you a few examples of how to get going. And in this example, I'm building a raft. As long as I had the logs that I needed and the cloth that I needed, the interface would let me make the item that I was trying to create. It seemed to me that discovering new recipes in Salt came through trial and error. As you discover new things on the ground, you would just apply them as a component and new recipes would pop up. At first take, the combat in Salt seemed a little simplistic. As you can see from this example here, I found a pirate. I can block or parry, and I can swing. He's taking damage, I'm taking damage. Eventually one of us runs out of health and dies. But there's a little bit more to it. Swinging and parrying takes up some of my endurance, which was the blue bar. Some of my attacks would go through his defense, some of his attacks would go through my defense, so there's definitely an element of maybe the weapons or his weapon's a little bit better, so it's doing damage whether I'm blocking or not. And there's situations like this where you think you're coming across one guy and want to play, and then you end up with these two acrobats here that want to do some sort of tandem whatever ass kicking on you, and then you die. Death itself doesn't seem to have any real penalty. You basically go back to a save point, which in my experience was either the raft or the ship. So I didn't notice I was getting penalized by losing coin or anything like that. The mission system in Salt isn't overly deep. There's no running around and tracking quests that you pick up from the different NPCs. Pretty much any NPC that isn't trying to kill you will typically have some sort of job for you to do, so there is that, but you pretty much have to remember what they ask you to do and go do it. And also there's these books like you see here that will have some sort of clue for an activity that you can complete. So where does all this gathering and crafting and fighting and missions lead you, you might ask? Well, that's probably the coolest what in the what section of the game. It leads you to sailing. The landscape in Salt is mostly water. So you're going to spend a lot of your time traveling between the different islands doing missions and gathering and whatnot. And the mechanic that the developers came up with for that is to have you sail boats, or rafts, like in this case, across the sea. And it's not isometric like Pirates of the Burning Sea or Sid Meier's Pirates. Well, except in this example. You're typically not going to be 100 feet above your boat with a vast view of the sea. You're on the deck of whatever your vessel is, and your hands on the wheel or your hands on the tiller, and you're moving it across the water. And I found that to be pretty cool. The sea itself seems fairly flat at this moment, but it gets choppier. There's some swells. It felt like there was some wind going on, although the sail did not move around a whole lot. This particular mechanic was a lot of fun. If you're into sailing of any kind, I think you probably enjoy this. And, you know, as you're crafting and you're missioning and you're fighting and you're gathering, get better and better, you're going to find yourself on better ships, but we'll show more of that later on. So where does the game take place? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the game world for Salt is a series of fairly closely located islands. There's no UI map in the game. There's no map vendor NPC that I was able to find. So I really didn't get too good of an idea of how big the game world actually is before I did this video. I hit probably 25 islands over the course of the time. There's even a book that says something about looking for inns. I never even found an inn. But it's a cool game world. It's a little cartoony for me. But as you can see, I mean, the seas definitely have some character to them. This one's got a little bit of swells going on. The islands themselves vary in terrain and vegetation quite a bit. Some of them have animals that you can hunt on them. There's fish in the sea if you want to go fishing. So I mean, it's pretty alive, I guess would be the word. There is a day-night cycle in the game. The seems fairly fast. It goes from daylight like here to night like right here. This is actually almost twilighty. It feels like it seems like it was a lot darker than this when I was playing sometimes. There's no real way to see where you're going in the dark outside of navigating by these little campfires and a compass that you can't craft in the game, and that weird blinky white circle thing there that I saw a couple times. But all in all, Game World was kind of interesting, if cartoony. Normally I'd use when to discuss when the time I thought the game takes place, but outside of like a real general feel for this game taking place during the Age of Sail based on the vehicles and the weapons that you use, I'm not really sure. Like I said, I didn't use the wiki. I just kind of went with what was in the game. The game doesn't really give you an indicator of when it takes place. Just guessing. You're using swords. There's a lot of sails being used, so 15, 16, 1700s would be my guess. Could be more modern. There may be a steamship that I just didn't come across. But it doesn't matter. The game plays out fine, regardless of the timeline. So that brings us to why. Why would you want to play this game? Why would I recommend the game? Well, let's look at the pros and cons, or the cons and pros. The game's a little cartoony. That was a bit of a negative for me, but that's an art style that a lot of people appreciate. Crafting was a little light, and I'm kind of a crafting kind of guy. But I'll tell you what, the game does have something going for it that a lot of other open world survival games seem not to. And that's a feeling of progress, where you're actually doing something cool. I came across this derelict ship that needed some parts to be repaired. I was in my raft, I found it, came across it, had basically a mission for me to do. I've got to go out and gather up some stuff that I don't have so I can come back and complete the mission, and the reward for the mission basically is the ship. I'd be upgrading my raft to a ship. And that's a sense of progress that I think too many of these open world survival games are missing. Progress is not upgrading what you built your house out of, to me anyhow. A wood house, a stone house, a metal house, it's still, you know, a blocky house, just made out of something different. Upgrading from a raft to, you know, this ship, I'm not sure what style it is, let's just call it a schooner. That establishes a sense of progress for me, and I think that's kind of a cool thing in this type of game. So definitely a pro on the Y side of playing the game. There's a lot of interesting things to do. I didn't really show the hunting in this video, but you can hunt animals on the different islands. I didn't get into the fishing, but you can definitely fish on your boats. The game world, even though, like I said before, it's a little cartoony, it definitely feels fleshed out. At the time that I bought this game for this series, it was listed as an early access or early entry game, whichever it is on Steam. And that might not be the best example of the type of game I should be doing a sale budget review for. But I get the feeling from playing this game that there's not a lot of functionality left to put in this game to where the developers are going with it. I could be wrong. My guess would be that the difference between what the version that I'm showing you here today and what you might buy after it comes out of early entry would probably just going to be a matter of the models in the game. But as it is, it was an enjoyable experience. I wanted to use a system of value in the Y section of these videos, and so I decided to borrow the "Does it meet the dollar per hour" rule that I'm sure some of you have heard. I paid $10 for this. It's currently listed at $15, and I definitely feel that you'd probably get $15 out of the game. So, as a pure sense of value, the game's probably worth what it cost. So you're gonna have to excuse my metaphor that this game is a buried treasure or whatever. I mean, it's a pirate game, whatever. I think I'd recommend this game. If the art style is something that you like, and a light RPG with light quest system is something that's your ball string, then you'd probably definitely enjoy this game. I did, and I'll probably continue to enjoy it. Anyhow, let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree. If you have a game you think that we should do, let me know in the comments below, and we will see you next time.